Welcome to another episode of Old Wise Guys with Opinions. This is a As Good as I Remember review. I'm Michael, and this is,
Bernard.
and Bernard's going to introduce his
Right.
movie.
So when we came up with this idea of like thinking about things you either hated or loved 15 or 20 or 30 years ago, and then rewatching it for the first choice I made was the movie from 1997, The Relic, which I remember going to see at the theater because I love horror films. And ironically, this film premiered on my birthday. It was its opening
Ooh.
day that year. And so I went with my wife and went and saw it for my birthday. Um, and I remember liking it at the time. So that was my choice for this segment. I don't know what else to say because I'm waiting for you to interject. But my thought was Mike had never heard of it.
I'd never heard of it, never watched it, and you were like, "Hey, watch this," and so I'm like, "Okay, I will watch this." And you know what two words really got me intrigued as the credits started rolling. Stan Winston. I was like, ooh, okay. But so then I watched it, and it was better than I remember because I never watched it
Right.
and have no memory of it.
So not really. Probably not a good choice for this, since neither you hadn't seen it. But
No, I think it's a perfect choice for this because um, you get to watch it again, and
right,
and B, you get some validation from somebody who's coming in clean.
right, which is good. I went and saw it when it came out at the theater, just because honestly, at that point in '97, uh, I was going to see practically everything that came out if it was even remotely interesting. And this being a horror film, which is probably my favorite genre, um, I went to see it, and I then went back and read the novel that it was
Okay.
based on. And this came out like right in the '90s when all these techno kind of horror science
Do you think it got
thrillers.
made because of Jurassic Park?
So the novel came out, I think, in '95. When did Jurassic Park came out? '93, right?
93, yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
saying, oh, hey, there's
Um,
a new book, and it's monster
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's
dinosaurs.
what I'm saying. It was in that spate of this is what's happening in the
Yeah,
world. Was like this became really popular, and so there was this spate of like science fiction, techno thriller novels, uh, you know, that were coming out, and people were rushing to try to capture the next Jurassic Park or next big thing. Yeah, you're right. Um, so the novel came out in '95. I think the movie's '97.
yeah.
Um, so the novel varies wildly from the, the the screenplay or the script, which I think in kind of interesting ways because the main this is the thing I took away from my second viewing is the hero of the movie is a woman.
Mm-hmm.
She solves the problems, kills the monster, saves the day, which in retrospect is very progressive for the time, which I didn't even think about at the time. In '97, I was just enjoyed the film,
Yeah.
but in retrospect, I think that's a unique take because that character has zero input
Mm-hmm.
really into the book. The main character in the book is the detective,
Oh, really?
and
Because
she's
yeah, for the movie, she feels like the main character.
right. And she's just in the book. It's more of that traditional role of I'm the brainy and reasonably attractive science lady,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Which she fulfills that role in the movie too, but she has more agency and she actually
Yeah.
accomplishes things, which I liked.
Yeah. See, watching it now and not at that time period when I was watching it, and I'd never watched the X-Files in the 90s. I watched it a few years ago, burned through the original series, most of it. So watching her, I'm like, did they? I mean, because X-Files started in '93. This came out 4
Right.
years later, and I was like, did they just go, oh, we're going to take Dana Scully as kind of an inspiration? Because those characters, like they share a lot of, that no nonsense. They're very factual based. Let's look at the evidence and see where the evidence takes us. And I just found like there was like a lot of parallel in the characters
And
just from
that
that
very
point.
well could be because Hollywood just looks at what's the trend of
Yeah.
the day and tries to parrot and mimic back things they think will make them money.
Yeah.
So that's a very distinct possibility. But I'm all in favor of it because I think the movie is actually better than the novel in that respect. Because it makes more sense for her to have the answers and find the solutions in some way. The
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to comment on is the director. I'm going to butcher the name. It's Peter Hyams. Is that what it? Is that it?
Sure. We'll go with that. Peter Hyams.
Hyams. Yeah.
Hyams?
Peter Hyams. I don't know. He's a pretty well known director of like not horror films per se, but
Right.
like he's a director and screenwriter, cinematographer. He did like Capricorn 1
Oh, yeah.
and Outland, the Sean Connery High Noon
Right.
movie, and he did the sequel to 2001. So he's like in the one of my favorite buddy cop movies from the 80s, Running Scared with Billy Crystal.
Oh, okay.
I like that one. He's done a lot of
He's done, when you look at it's like almost blockbusters.
right.
I mean, he did End of Days.
Right. That I think was that a career killer for him? Maybe?
Well, no, he came back and he did, no, well, maybe, because he didn't do much beyond it.
Yeah, well, you can't win them all. I haven't rewatched End of Days. Maybe that'll be a good one for this because
Or is it as bad as we remember?
because I remember just being livid at it. But the thing that I think is interesting is he only uses natural light
oh my gosh.
to film his movies, so there's no set lighting. Like they don't like.
So yeah, right now, if you are putting this movie in to watch, turn all of your lights out because any ambient light is going to make it hard for you to focus on the screen. And thank you.
Also,
Thank you, Barney, for warning me of that because I was like, what? I can't see anything.
Right. You're welcome because he just uses whatever light is available at the time.
And when half your movie takes place
And half your movie
underground,
takes place in a sewer or whatever, with flashlights. And it also is, I've found, probably dependent on the quality of the print that you're looking at, too. Because a lot of the, like maybe DVDs or Blu-rays or even the streaming options, they might have mastered that incorrectly color time.
Right.
So it could wash it out and make it. So a lot of the complaints I've heard over the years of people complaining about this film is that I can't see what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, I guarantee in the theater you could see what was happening. It's just dark. Now, if the print quality or is bad that they're using for like wherever it's on Amazon Prime or wherever, that is probably interfering with your enjoyment of the film a little. But there is something to be said for his natural lighting. Does create a very distinct atmosphere of kind of dread and a sense of realism that is often missing from horror or monster movies in particular. And it works, I think, to the advantage because I think the monster holds up incredibly well until there's those few shots where they CGI something.
Exactly. That was
early level CGI when it's Stan Winston's animatronic monster.
That thing was gorgeous.
Perfect.
It is gorgeous. And that was like my note. I get to the end and I was like, CGI tongue. I was like, just when I thought there wasn't, the CGI wasn't noticeable when they did use it,
Right.
then this awful CGI
Right.
tongue, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'm done.
The
I'm done.
one that gets me is the explosion, like the 3D when she blows up the monster at the end, like Jaws,
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
thing. And there's that really bad like CGI pinchers and teeth or whatever flying, and
Yep.
it's like really awkward. And so yeah, that was also at the forefront of like, oh look, computers are going to the future. Well, yeah, but wait till they're flawless before you incorporate them, because it may look good for the time, but time doesn't treat special effects well.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on the special effects. I mean, some of these creature suits. I mean, come on, Creature of the Black
Creature from the
Lagoon.
Black Lagoon. Yeah, I mean there are exceptions. Like that
But
suit still looks really good, and really was never beat until Predator. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe the original Alien, as like man in a suit making a convincing monster.
yeah,
But I was thinking more in terms of CGI, like
right.
the CGI, all the special effects I could think of that were like, the future is computer generated effects, like The Last Starfighter, the first CGI
Yeah.
space thing. And I'm like, I love that movie,
Right.
but dang, man, the effects do not hold up. They look like, PlayStation 1 level graphics or whatever.
So when I'm watching it, okay, and you have Linda Hunt as Dr. Ann Cuthbert, and the first thing I think of is like, oh, it's Edna Mode, and you ruined that for me.
I know, because I told you that was her.
Yeah, but that's not actually her in The Incredibles.
No, it's Brad Bird.
I'm
So
like,
they
oh
clearly
my
they
gosh.
patterned her visually
Yeah.
after that woman.
But yeah, I just always assumed that really was her, and it was not.
And here's another thing, that lizard brain we were talking about with
Yeah,
Idle Hands.
right.
I was rewatching it, and I have this memory in the theater of at the end of the movie, my reptilian lizard brain remembered for some reason that Penelope Cruz, or Penelope as she's more commonly called,
Right.
Penelope Ann Miller, not Cruz, Penelope Ann Miller, was, I remember her running around in a dress with, like, black stocking hose and
Yeah.
barefoot.
Yeah.
And that's what stuck out in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to rewatch it, I was like, and it's not featured like in any prominent way. And I'm like, why do I remember that?
You know what I think what it is, because I was watching it and I made a note of it, is like, where is it?
Is it just
She takes, they make a it's a thing. She takes her heels off.
Right.
To run, and I wrote, oh, she took her heels off. She's serious now. I'm like, because how many horror movies does the female lead do that?
Right,
I mean,
that might be why, but I just remembered that, like, I was thinking it would be more prominent.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's not. I don't
Yeah.
know why I remembered that.
but it's one of those things. I think it's that, because remember how much we giggled at Jurassic World, where she's running from the T-Rex in her heels, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Much more believable.
And there was the autopsy. I mean, like, one of the notes that I made was like, the autopsy scene is great, but this brain is light even for a man, and I was like,
Good one. There's now correct me. It's been like those kids that stayed in the museum.
yeah.
That they're dead, right? Did they get killed? I can't remember.
I can't remember. The only thing I made a note was like, those kids were like there all day and nobody noticed. It was
Yeah.
like kind of weird.
I honestly don't remember how their story ended.
Now we have an excuse to watch it again.
Right. Because I remember, I think what's happening is in my head, the movie Mimic and this are being overwritten.
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's two kids that go see the scientist lady in Mimic, and then they go get murdered in the subway.
Yeah.
So I might be transposing some things there.
It could be.
But one of the things I found interesting when I was looking up stuff about this is because of the way the novel portrays museum administration
Yeah.
and all that stuff, that no museum really would let them film in the museum because they thought it was unflattering. And they were offering, like, lots of money to film there, but they were like worried not only that a monster movie would scare kids away from museums, but like they didn't like how they were being presented as sort of elitist, money
Right.
grubbing, whatever.
Especially that Dr. Lee, right?
Right.
'Cause he's
So they finally got permission to film at, like, I think the Natural History Museum in Chicago, and so that was interesting.
Yeah. One of the things, like looking at one of the producers on the movie, I don't know if you noticed this, but it was like when it popped up, I was like, oh, but it's Gail Ann Hurd was involved in this, and I don't know if that name is one that sticks out
Not
for you.
really.
Gail Ann Hurd, she's one of the producers on The Terminator, Aliens, so she's been involved with a lot of that stuff.
Kennedy also have her name in the credits here? With,
That
like Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy?
Oh, that I don't know. I don't remember seeing them.
I seem to feel like they were attached to everything in the 90s.
That could be. And see, I think that's like Gail Ann Hurd was attached to everything in the late 80s and 90s, it seemed like. But, I just knew that she was connected to like Terminator, Aliens, and some of that stuff. Right. So I was like, oh. But yeah, that it turned out for never having seen it. And part of me, I was watching it, and I'm like, am I sure I've never seen this? There were some things that just felt a little familiar. So there is every possibility that I watched it at some point in the late 90s and just don't remember.
Or that it's been, like, parts of it have been stripped and used elsewhere.
Yeah.
I do remember that Siskel and Ebert both gave it a positive, which I thought was interesting.
Really?
Considering that most people at the time, I mean, I don't think it was like super well received,
right,
for the most part. But I do remember that they were both like, yeah, it's fine, it's entertaining, and if you like monster movies, and
and as a monster movie, it does bar its fair share, like, because when Linda Hunt's character is like, oh, we can't shut down the benefit dinner that we're going to have. And I was like, she just became the mayor from Jaws.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so it does. And there are certain things, you got Stan Winston doing the monster. There are certain things there you're like, oh, it connects just to some of the other creatures that he's done. But all in all, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot.
I thought it was entertaining. I mean, I still enjoyed it. So it was as good as I remember, apart from, the dodginess of some of the
special
CGI
effects,
which mercifully are. There's only like maybe 3 shots.
I mean, honestly, that was the thing that I think impressed me the most with CGI coming to the forefront in the 90s, and they stayed away from it as much as possible.
Right. I think they were still doing the Jurassic Park template of Stan Winston makes things, we supplement where needed.
Yeah.
Rather than relying on one thing all the time.
Which, I wish the last 2 of the Aliens, quadrilogy had stayed away from that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Which, we'll talk about.
Oh, God. Yeah, thanks for that.
All right.
Yeah, so in summation, I'm going to say I enjoyed the Relic, and if they ever release a Blu-ray that is officially endorsed, color graded by the director for the right black balances, I would definitely buy it again.
Yeah. No, I not having watched it, but yeah, it is definitely a solid film to sit down and watch. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Were you invested, like, the mystery of it? Did that come as a revelation, or was that sort of predictable that the monster was the guy?
No, No, it was good enough that it wasn't like obvious, and yeah, you're trying to puzzle it out along with them. So, yeah, I do think it was fairly solid in the mystery part of it.
Okay, good. Because I felt that way at the theater. I was like, I remember you get to that revelation part, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
um, that changes some things.
Hmm.
And I thought that was handled fairly intelligently.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely, again, definitely worth a watch.
Unlike the next two films.
Yeah, we'll be back with another recurring segment, as bad as I remember, where we do our
The answer is
best,
always yes.
where we do our best to torture each other with some films. We'll be talking about um, Alien Resurrection.
The Jabberwocky.
Jabberwocky. I don't know which one of us is the bigger jerk in these two. All right, so go listen to those and go check out the Relic.